Today we're going to be building the Fanhome Enterprise D Pack 26, which includes stages 99 to, I believe, 102. Yep, 99 to 102 here. So we're going to start off seeing what we're doing in Pack 99. All the stage parts. It will be securing the saucer to the battle section. Looks like lots of wiring, some frame attaching to the saucer, some cable wrangling, and yeah. So we will start with that. I have Pack 99 right here. Get this open. Nice big piece of frame. The frame for the saucer section is nearly complete on my model. As I said, this is Pack 26 out of 30, so we are a ways into it. What up, laser? And obviously this is going to be attached, so you'll get to see the whole saucer section, although this thing is quite the albatross, so we'll see if it can even fit on camera. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. So, first things first, take the longer light panels, which each contains 2 bulbs. We have to separate the wires and then pull them out so these wires at the LED kind of form a straight 180 degree line. Just like that. Do the same for the other one. Being very careful not to pull the wires out of the LED. Not something I've done before, but also not something I want to do currently. And do the same for the other one. Holding it around this way. Looks like the first bulb will be going in here. Again, the reason we had to flatten these wires out is the bulb fits in this groove, and as you can see there's a little screw hole there, and we have to fit one of these clips down in there. So, getting my screwdriver. These will be the AM screws. We're screwing 2 bulbs in right now. I'm sorry, we're only screwing 1 in right now. So one thing I have learned doing these models is anytime you're going to be screwing into metal, you want to put the screw in a little bit of oil, because there will sometimes be some paint left over in the screw holes, or sometimes you're actually cutting the threads with the screws. So I was just getting my oil ready over there. Just a drop on the end of the screw is all it will do, all it'll take. Having a screw with a magnetic head is beyond helpful. Get that in there. Why couldn't they all have been this easy? Well, I should wait till it's in before I say that. There we go. Let me just double check everything looks like it should in the picture. Yep. Alright, now, like I said, we're going to bring this huge serving platter of a saucer section over. This is the underside. The top side is all complete. Just getting a little towel underneath here to protect it on the underside. Do a dry fit first. There we go. I had a wire pinched there. Yeah, that's looking like it's good. Now the fun part, just screwing in all 13 of these screws. Looks like it's now just a matter of plugging everything in. Rotate this so I can get a good line of sight on the PCB. These parts are tricky because you do not want to bend any of the pins in the PCB. Not only will that damage it and you'll have to get a replacement, but I would have no idea how I'd get this PCB out at this point. I'd probably just throw this whole thing out the window and pretend it never happened. I will agree with that. I think drone shows are far superior to fireworks. You can do so much more with them, a lot more colors, a lot more variations, patterns, and they don't blow out your ears at the same time. Okay, there's one in. You listen for that click as the tabs engage still. And then let's test it. Moment of truth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. They are all working. It's always the nerve-wracking part. That's where you get to the end. It used to be, early on in this build, they have a little test board here. Each panel you would plug in and test after you completed it before you add it to the saucer. But the battery pack is being used in the saucer, and just generally as it's grown, you're fitting more and more saucer pieces together at one time. I might do some cable wrangling with this, but I might do that later because I'm sure there's going to be more coming in, and I just want to make sure that we get it all in one go. At the same time, it is all going to be sealed up, so I'm not particularly concerned about making it look pretty, as you can probably tell by seeing this rat's nest, but I just want to make sure that everything is secured down so that when we do seal it up, we don't pinch any wires and end up breaking them. Alright, we're going to goodness. Okay, that was it for 99. Now we're going to move on to pack 100, which does include a deck panel. So you get to see the fun of inserting every single window individually. So first things first, with these builds, get the sprue cutters and cut everything off, these escape hatches and the windows. She'll do the escape hatches first, because it looks like we do seal those in before we put in windows. And then holding it this way around, you want to make sure the red line on the escape hatches are always pointing to the larger section. Push those ones in so they're flush. And then 1 AM screw and 2 IM. These deck panels, much like the lighting I did on the frame in the last stage, done so many of these that I could just look at pack 100 and I knew exactly what was coming and what I would have to do. Yeah, it's looking good. Going into metal so you can make it nice and tight. Now you are going to see where so much of the time on this build has gone. That is cutting out and individually inserting every single window. There are certain sections Next we have a panel here. So anytime there's a curved section that requires really small windows, they'll sometimes send one of these panels. But for just your regular deck panels, it's all just cutting out each individual one, which I don't mind. This build is not meant to be done fast. But yeah, one thing I did like about this build was, as you can see, they give you plenty of extra windows. And they say in the instructions, you know, you can put the windows in any way you want them, in order of lighted windows versus the darkened windows. They do provide in the instructions, like, their recommendations. And for the most part, I've been following those. There have been a couple sections where I felt like it was just either a lot of lighted windows in a row or a lot of darkened windows in a row, and I have kind of swapped one or two. But for the most part, I've been following it because when you put the windows in, they're sealed in with this reflector panel. So even if it's a darkened window, there is a light source behind it. So it allows you to, you know, kind of swap them as you see fit. But the way they have them in the instructions is, I don't know the good way to put it, like purposefully random, so it doesn't look too uniform. Yep, looking good. Tighten this down. Again, going into metal. So nice, especially for these ones. You want it nice and tight. I've maybe not been as diligent with that in some of the earlier parts of this build. And sometimes when you pick up the saucer section, you can hear some of these windows rattling around. But I've since gotten better with that. Make them nice and tight. Get this last reflector in. Yeah, it looks good. I do. There's a couple. So there's company Fanhome. There's like 3 in the running, I should say. This company Fanhome, they make the DeLorean from Back to the Future, which is high up there on my list. Just putting in the phaser panel now. This one's held in with plastic screws, so no oil, and you don't want to over tighten these. The Back to the Future DeLorean is high up there. But that's another vehicle, and I know, you know, Starship and a 2-door coupe are a little different, but, you know, similar in that sense. They do also make this, well, you can't see my hands, this 2-foot tall model of RoboCop. That is very, very high on the list. And then another company named Agora Models, they have a Titanic model that I think is really cool, but it's 52 inches long, and I don't know where I would build that and then store it afterwards, so that one's not. But they also do what I think it's a little over 2 feet tall of the original animated movie version of Optimus Prime. And although I'm not like one of those, there we go, nice deck panel, one of those diehard Transformers fans, it is a very cool model. And from what I've read online, everyone who builds it has a super fun time. So, you know, I got time to think. This isn't going to be over until, when? 4 months? December? January? Maybe? December. That sounds right. So, plenty of time to think. But then who knows? There could be another model that is released in that time frame that I'm interested in. Agora Models did also just announce they're doing the Aston Martin DB5 from Goldfinger. That one I'm also kind of eyeing. They've just announced it, though, so I want to wait and, you know, hear more of the features and see what it's like. But we'll see. We will see. Plenty of time to make that decision. All right, we are on to stage 101 now. Bring these parts over. This is what happens a lot of times. You'll make a deck panel in one stage, and then another stage you'll make, where is it? Like the lower part of this deck, and I guarantee you we're probably going to be putting these together. As you can see how they just fit in there, and probably putting that on the ship afterwards. But get all these extra screws out of the way. I did think about, and as I sit here clipping out each individual window, it might have been a good idea, but I did think about going through these packs ahead of time and just removing all of these and having them ready. But for one thing, I kind of just absolutely forgot about that idea. So there's that. And the other thing is sometimes the windows are just very slightly different in shape. Not enough that you can really tell just by, looking at it. But if you tried to put it in, then you would know. And I'd be very worried of mixing the wrong sized windows. Oh yeah, don't worry. I'm sure they're going to come out with an easy mode patch for Elden Ring any day now. Get the clear windows out. Now they have escape pod hatch. I just noticed this. They have escape pod hatches here, but this panel doesn't have any escape pods. So I'm wondering if these are something we have to save for a later stage. We will find out. Again, just following their their recommendation for how these windows go in. It's done me good for the most part. But however you want to put them in is up to you. Like I said, they give you plenty of spares. And what I like about, as I mentioned earlier, what I like about their instructions is it seems purposefully random. I feel like if I tried to put these in randomly, it would somehow end up looking uniform in some way. And for this one, since it is going to be attached to this deck panel later, only put it in with one screw now. Just enough to keep those windows in. And again, this one's going into plastic, so I don't want to go too tight. If I do have one complaint about this build, it's that sometimes these plastic pieces can be very, very soft, and it can be very, very easy to strip the threads as you're screwing in, even without over-tightening. I don't feel like that's a build flaw with Fanhome, because this build was originally started with a company called Eagle Moss, but they shut down, and Fanhome took over after that. So I feel like any complaints people might have or any problems they might have with this model, probably just ones that Fanhome inherited from Eagle Moss. It is not something that they themselves, or decisions they themselves made. So it's weird, first time streaming this. It wasn't so much of it. So the journey for this model went up for pre-order in 2020, and I think that just saying 2020 might be enough to kind of make everyone tighten up a bit. It was a long time before it finally shipped, of course. Again, 2020, COVID, all that. It finally did ship, and it took a while to get into like a regular routine of me receiving the shipments, because again, shipping lane issues, 2020 into 2021. And then it finally did, and then all of a sudden, because these come every 4 weeks, like pretty much like clockwork once it finally got into a good rhythm. Then all of a sudden it was like every 5 weeks, then every 6 weeks. Then it got to the point where like every 6 weeks I had to contact them and say, where's my order? And they'd be like, oh, it's shipping out now. And then one day they just stopped. I went to the website was shut down. Emailed their customer service, got a return that it was down. The phone number, everything was just down. No word, just closed. I still don't really know why they closed. My interpretation was, you hear it so many times, they get a company like Eagle Moss had been around for decades, and they get in some young, dumb CEO who just runs the company into the ground and then sails away on their golden parachute. essentially what happened. Is my guess. Again, they never really came out and said anything, and the website was just straight up shut down. Anyway, once I found out that it was closed, I had already gone through so many frustrations getting this build that I was very torn if I was going to keep it or just chuck it into the garbage. But I forget the guy's name, the guy who originally designed this enterprise model build, the Partwork build. He came out and he said in a statement, like, hey, like, there's a lot of interest in other companies wanting to pick this up, but it's a process that takes time. So just be patient. And I was, so frustrated with the whole process. I just boxed everything up and was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'll throw it away. And I kind of wish I had been a little bit more level-headed in that situation, because I did end up damaging the saucer section and another piece. It's very, very minor things, but since I know they're there, I can always see them. But when I was boxing away, I just did it like super quick and haphazardly and ended up damaging it a little bit. So I do wish I'd been a little bit more level-headed in that sense, but at the same time, man, that whole situation was just such a mess. I was so glad that Fanhome picked it up. I've been very happy with them. Customer service was great. Oh yeah. There was the Thing, Outposts 31, that board game. I ordered that. It was just entering manufacturing at the start of 2020, I think, and I didn't get that till, I don't know, 2022 maybe. But anyway, been very happy with Fanhome. The shipments arrive like clockwork every 4 weeks. Well, there was one time where there was an IT outage and it was a little delayed, but that happens. I've had to deal with their customer service before, like I said, getting an incorrect item shipped to me, and they're great. They are very great. I'm assuming, maybe that's what Eagle Moss was like in their heyday, but my dealings with Eagle Moss were not terribly positive. Okay, next we're going to grab these two cables and this one. Rapidly running out of space here. Because I do have to bring over this beast again. Gotta do some cable wrangling here. That looks correct. Then one more, and then we will test to make sure all these work before we secure down any deck panels. Come here. And then does this must just wrap around here. Oh my goodness. There we go. All right. Moment of truth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Success. So now we're going to that deck panel we just finished. I'm going to be lighting that up. Let me get my screws ready. Starting with this one. Again, going into plastic, you want it tight so that it secures the wire and stop the windows from rattling. But you don't want to over tighten because you will strip that excuse me, you will strip that plastic. That's good. And then these two. Alright, now we need this deck panel, and I'm going to be putting it in here with these lights. Wait. Yeah. Let me get my screws ready. These panels, when you attach them to the frame, they rarely fit in perfectly first try, but just in case, I want the screws ready. So we put, this is always like a tricky part for me. Yep, you see these just kind of, I try to sort of bend them into position, but, because the tough thing is you have to slide this deck panel over. You have to get kind of both lights in one go, and the bigger the saucer section gets and the more space it takes up, the harder it is to do these ones. I just need a second pair of hands, but close. There we are. And so you gotta bend, I don't know if you can see it, but these wires that are in the bottom part here, you want to bend them so they're going backwards over themselves. It's not the best angle to film this. I'm going to pull the excess wire through here. Then, oh my goodness, it did just go in first try. That's rare. I am going to give a little bit of a tap. The tabs that fit underneath each panel sometimes have some excess paint on them, and so tapping it like that just kind of fits it in a little firmer and helps it hold. But normally I have to do a lot more hammering. So this is something I did in a previous stage. This is part of the battle section. As you can see, this is kind of like the underside of the battle section. It sits down here if the ship is, normal. A section for the phaser array. So yeah, like the deflector dish goes right here. Anyway, we are fixing another light panel like this one up here. And I said earlier they gave me all these extra escape hatches, but I have one left over from the last stage. This is like we only need one in there, so I wonder why they gave me that many. Anyway, gotta make sure I put them the right way. So the red line is furthest from the center, so it should mirror that. Yep. That in there, looking good. And then so again, since this is like a curved long section and the windows are fairly tiny, they just gave an entire lighting panel. You grab here and okay. If you're gonna be like that, get in there. Doesn't clip in, but it does kind of hold itself in. But then we need to get this and which one of these wires? This one and this one are going to be going in here. Here and here. Yeah. Okay, let me get my screws ready. see if we can't just slip this one in here. One thing that's nice about the lighting panel versus the individual windows, it is easier to just kind of slide everything into place without risk of what happened earlier to me, where I knocked a single window out of whack and had to take the whole thing off. It's again one of those very soft pieces of plastic. Okay. So you definitely don't want to over tighten. Kind of hand tight, and then maybe just like another little like, oh, yep. Like I was saying, some of the plastic pieces, I just felt it hadn't even really started to grip, and I felt it kind of slipping. So it's got a little bit of bite there. I'm going to leave it there. It's not as tight as I would like it, but I feel like going any further, and I'm just going to strip the whole thing. So just one thing I have to do is get these wires out of the way because there's a screw hole there. But otherwise, that's looking good. But we'll just take our time here. Making sure it's out of the way of this screw hole. I think that should be good. Yeah. So the build does not call... Oh, wow. Okay, there's a lot going on in this stage. The build does not call for glue, but I have had to use it. Let me bring over a part I finished here. So this is the battle bridge. Or this battle bridge. This is the top of the like dorsal section. All lit up and completed. This is where the saucer section is going to affix. I don't know how that happens yet, but anyway, these panels here, these three specifically, you can't maybe tell these ones because they kind of blend in, but this transporter panel, these are all just stuck in. They have adhesive backing on it, and there's a couple different parts, like here's one where you have to put in these transporter pads, and for the most part they've all stuck in very, very well. But these three, this section is just a little bit curved, and all these panels are flat. And I tried everything I could to get them to stay in just with the adhesive. I tried bending the panels a little bit. I tried clamping them down, everything. And just any time I did it, and I'd look at it and like, oh, it looks good. And the second I'd turn it over, they would just fall out. So I did kind of just give up with those and glue them in with just a tiny little bit of glue. But as far as the model goes as a whole, it does not require any. Alright, so next up... Oh, okay, I see. So again, like I said, you sometimes get pieces in different packs that you don't use at all. This is just one entire section I got, I don't know, probably in the last pack, maybe pack before, I don't really remember. But this we are now going to be attaching to the underside of here. And here's why they gave me the extra escape pod hatches. We will also be using these wires. That often happens where within the 4 packs, there will be 1 or 2 that are pretty involved, and the other 2, kind of like the first pack, where it was really just, aside from attaching the frame. Oh no, the frame was the first pack. The deck panel was the second. But yeah, so those 2 packs, the wire wrangling I had a little bit of issue with, but they themselves are pretty easy. This one has a lot going on. Okay, let me just double check. All facing the right way. Good, good. And then let's see here. I need 8 of these screws. All ready to go. Going to need this wire. Position everything so it looks exactly like it does in the picture, just so I don't end up flipping everything around. Okay, this wire and this wire are done. Go over there. This wire, all these wires are actually attached to something, so I'm just going to, you know, I got a twist tie here. I'm just going to tie them up and get them out of the way. Because this now needs to marry these two sections together while also attaching some more lights. Even more to do in this stage. All right, let me get this twist tie off of here. Cable wrangling. Yeehaw. Bend this over. That's what these pads are for. Which, they're not the most adhesive pads you can get, but they're pretty much just meant to keep the cable in place until you seal everything up. So if it doesn't stick down fully, if it kind of pops up a bit, I'm not super concerned. Okay, that is finally the end of that massively long stage. And we are on to 102. Final one in this pack. Looks like we got a lot of pieces in this pack, but I think, judging by how some of these look, I'm guessing some of these will be saved for later stages, because I think I know what some of these parts are. And if I'm correct, I can, in fact, show you on different parts I have. Make sure bag is empty. Yes. And actually, as I'm looking at the instructions as I clip this out, I think I've been wrong. I thought these parts were going to be for saved for later for another nacelle section, because I have one completed here. This, I don't know which side this is. Red. I'm pretty sure red is port. Let me turn on the saucer section and see if I'm correct. Yes, red is port. So this is the port nacelle. And this cover, you know, looks the same. So I thought it was going to be for this, but it says installing batteries in the battle section in the instructions. So I wonder if we actually will be able to test out some other electronics. But we will see. I think, is Star Trek First Contact the only time you see... Or no, it must be Generations is one of the only times you see people using escape pods. Which is crazy to think, because it's one of those things I never really realized while watching the show. But I definitely realized while making this, there are so many escape pods on the Enterprise. I mean, I know they say there's a crew of 1,400 aboard, so it makes sense, but it's something you don't really think about until you have to put in each escape pod in individually. Then it's kind of at the forefront of your thoughts. It's interesting. You know, one thing that's been fascinating about this build is, I can show you. In the back of each magazine, they have an episode-by-episode guide. You know, talking about this episode, director, and they just give you information about it. But in the first few magazines, before they got into the episode breakdown, they gave you a lot of information about the design of the Enterprise D, and a lot of the things that the designer thought of and implemented. I mean, it goes well beyond an artist just doing some renderings. I wish I could think of his name off the top of my head, but he put so much thought and work into Enterprise, the Enterprise D. Even one thing that never comes up, designed bathrooms in the ship, but that's something that never comes up. I don't know if that was like a Gene Roddenberry decision where he never wanted bathrooms to be shown, but there's a section just off to the side in Picard's ready room, kind of like around the corner from where he keeps that fish tank, where there is, you know, a bathroom was designed in there. Oh, of course, whatever. I can't say that word apparently. There's a bathroom off the side of the bridge. You know, little things like that. There's even one fascinating thing that was never utilized in the show, and I think it was a majorly missed opportunity, was the underside of the saucer section. If you look at it, there's kind of this weird, like, oval shape that almost looks a little bit like a mirror of the bridge on the other side. And that was what was known as the captain's yacht. And it was its own kind of luxury shuttlecraft that was meant to be used for the captain if he ever had to travel, or if he had any admirals or dignitaries or whomever aboard. But it was never, ever used. It's supposed to just drop out of the underside of the saucer section and just be its own shuttle. And I think they really missed something by not putting that into the show. Because there were a couple times, I remember there's the one episode where Picard and a couple of the bridge crew are on a shuttlecraft returning to Enterprise. It's the one where there's like this weird time stop thing going on. And that shuttlecraft was like a Rolls-Royce shuttlecraft compared to all the other ones on the ship. But I still think that in and of itself was a missed opportunity not to have the captain's yacht. I don't know the decision why they never used it. I mean, it probably just came down to cost. They could repurpose other shuttlecrafts to look different, but the captain's yacht probably was too much. It would have to be built on its own. Okay. Bring this thing over again. Let's see where I can put this so you can see it. In these sections, it's important because this lip on the edge here has to grip the other side of this opposite panel, and it kind of clamps it together. So you have to, you know, like so many other things. I keep talking about how difficult this is, and it just goes in first try. Let me check something. Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course. That's never happened. I will struggle with these. I mean, it's good that it's going in easily. Saves me a headache. But again, going into metals, put an oil, and especially since this is going straight into the frame, you definitely want this nice and tight. As you can probably see what's happening here, the screw hole, there is an escape pod hatch cover that I will be putting over that to hide the screw hole. So each of these outer deck panels has one of those, and that's a very clever way to hide the screw hole. Get it in nice and tight. That's looking good. The edge looks good. You always want to make sure everything is just how you like it before you affix this covering, because once that is in, this is not going anywhere. Okay. Let's double check to make sure. Oh, they already have tape on this. Everything looks secure. They even have them hot glued in. That's good. A little extra support. So there's a cutout in here. It's hard to see it in this light. Right in there. It's a little grooved on the side to fit in this nut. Okay, fine. Just drops right in there. Deck panel went in easy, but this nut is fighting me. 2 AP screws to screw this in. Going into plastic, so no oil. Oh, and this is got a little notch cut out, and I think, yeah, that goes in like that. Tight, but not over tight because it's plastic. And then, alright, here's here's something we haven't seen yet. This is the other part of the dorsal section. This top part, a little dusty. This top part is looking good. Still, a work in progress on the underside. Got the deflector dish in there. This is all wired up, and I've tested all the lights. This is one of those things I test them individually with the test panel, but I'm guessing this battery we're putting in is what's going to be powering all of this. So, get it how it looks in the picture, as always. Okay, just had to get a better look at it, but I think that is in. And this doesn't get screwed down yet. Looks like it's supposed to fit in there. Make sure this is in the off position. Now it says we can test it. I think I have the batteries required. 20232. Give me 1 second to check on that. So let's see. Going here, there's the cover. And this one is screwing into the nut fixed on the other side. Alright, moment of truth. If the switch will cooperate, get back here. Success. Again, kind of hard to see in the light, but these are lit up and no real good angle to get the deflector dish, but it is lit up, I can assure you. This is pretty awesome. We get to join up the section we just worked on with this. You can tell that the build is kind of coming to a close because everything is starting to come together now. I get it most of the way there and then push it in. There we go. Hear that click. Making sure everything's below the frame. I still don't know about this one. Pull this out of their sticker. Okay. Because now we have to carefully flip everything over. Maybe go like that. Attach these wires, because these tabs have to go in these slots right here. They're just resting in there and then get secured when we screw it down. So I want to be 100% sure I'm happy with everything before I put those in. Okay, those are in loosely. I think I will put in all the screws that are going to metal, just so this thing is very strongly secured. And then work on the edges. That is a question I can very easily answer. The Immortan Joe's Giga Horse from Mad Max Fury Road. I would love to see that as a model. That would... So most car models are at 1/8 scale. And that one, I think what would be crazy about it is even at 1/8 scale, it would be massive. Yep, the one that's like 2 Cadillac bodies welded together, powered by... I remember reading up on it when the movie came out because I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. Powered by twin V8 engines, and the rear tires, each side, are dual tractor tires. It's just, yeah, it's a beast of a vehicle, and I think it's just so cool looking, and I think would make a really unique looking model. Of course, you know, Max's V8 Interceptor is more iconic, so I feel like if there was going to be a Mad Max vehicle, it probably would be that one. And I would also love to build that one, either from Fury Road or the one from Road Warrior. You know, there's subtle differences, but the War Rig would also be super awesome, but that one would also be a beast in and of itself. Although thinking about it, if that were to be a Partwork model, one thing they could do is the model itself could be the rig, just the rig, and then maybe the trailer full of water, and then the fuel pod that they have in back. Maybe those are just kind of pre-made things that you can buy and then attach to the War Rig. That would also be an option. Going around making sure every one of these metal screws is tight, or CM screws. Yep. I'm gonna look at the edges. I'm still not happy with how this, I don't know if you can see that, this front part looks. I don't really know if it's these tabs are in wrong. Let me see what's left. I might... Okay, so this is the end of it. I think I might leave it there. I want to figure these out, but I also have to get a better look at the thing. And I gotta say, it's probably not very exciting to have me off camera just looking at a model. But you get the idea. Aside from these little tabs that aren't fitting perfectly, the only thing left to do is put in a couple plastic screws just to kind of tighten up these edges here. But otherwise, as always, after putting in screws, I always like to test the lights just one more time to make sure I didn't clip a wire. Kind of hard to see on camera. I mean, you can see those ones, but I'm just making sure these panel lights... Let me try and turn off the overhead light. Okay, there you go. Now you have a better look at them. So, everything is looking good. Oh yeah, I think now with the lights off, you can probably see the deflector array lit up better. There you go. Yeah, these damn tabs. Anyway, that's something I will figure out on my own. But otherwise, that's all we got.